Sean, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So I have to ask you, what was the impetus for you to write the book, Get Off Your Butt?
Well, I knew that I couldn't be everywhere at all times, and so therefore I needed to put my message into a format that could clone me and get me out into the world, get the message in the hands of people that I might never meet in person. I also knew that I wanted to create a legacy of work that would outlive me, and God willing, that book continues to sell long after I'm gone. And it was also just a piece that I wrote because I wanted to stop making excuses myself. And I felt, what better way to hold yourself to a high standard than to write a book about it?
Mm-hmm. So what have been some of your excuses?
Oh gosh, in so many different areas. We teach what we most want to learn. So excuses I've held myself back on in business is that I didn't have a big enough reach at one point. I didn't grow up with hardcore entrepreneurial parents, so they didn't pass anything along to me. In starting a business, I've used the excuse at times that it's just too hard to stick with something that my attention is always going to the newer, shinier object, and it's I'm not built for consistency. Yeah, the excuses are most deadly when they're accurate.
Yes, isn't that true? So I can relate to having shiny object syndrome, and I'm curious, what was your big epiphany or breakthrough around your shiny objects and getting past that and actually having that be an asset that you are able to find so many different opportunities?
I would be lying if I said I have overcome it. I still face it, but having a team built around you that you can leverage yourself and pass things off to somebody else who likes to take the next steps, that's helped a lot. Also, just forgiving myself for being that way. There's a lot that goes into life that's not discussed, and one of them is the acceptance that some people are just so good at locking themselves into a room and staying focused for hours, and other people are just not. And I am not one of those people. And so to set myself up to not feel like a failure for the way my brain works like a pinball machine, because I'm also capable, that gives me a strength because I'm open to trying a lot of new things. I think there's a lot of people on this planet roaming the earth that struggle with change and new things. They want to keep everything the way it was. And I'm not that way. It would drive my wife nuts, but I could live in a new home like every 2 years. I could live in a new part of the world every few years. I could start over and rebuild new friendships every few years. I could even start over careers every few years. I love trying new things. I love seeing if I can do something. So that is a great advantage to being a Renaissance man, having lots of different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Tony Robbins said that the most powerful part of our personality is our need to be consistent with our identity. So if part of your identity is to be all over the place, scattered or unfocused or whatever those negative, disempowering beliefs are, then you set yourself up for failure because your brain in the background is constantly looking for opportunities to reinforce that disempowering belief and its quote-unquote truth. So one thing that was helpful for me, and maybe this would be helpful for you, because I have so many different things that I'm working on and thinking about at the same time, and I do like to task switch constantly. It's not even multitasking, it's just task switching. Multitasking doesn't even exist. It's not a real thing. It's just you're task switching all the time. So the identity shift I had was going from like, oh, I must have ADD or ADHD or something, even though I've never been tested, to seeing myself as a spotter. And this is something I'd never heard of before, but my friend Amy Africa told me about this. There were hunters, there were gatherers, but there was a third type of a person in the tribes back in those prehistoric days, and those were the spotters. They kept the tribe alive because the spotters would be very alert to dwindling resources, or the herd's on the move sort of thing, right? So they would be the first to spot that that's happening. And the people that we label as ADD, they don't have a disease. They are wired to be spotters, to save the tribe from impending doom. So that's us. And once I identified as a spotter instead of scattered or ADD, that opened up so much opportunity, and I was able to kind of thrive in that environment. So I don't know if that's helpful for you, but I thought I'd share that.
I'll have to look further into that.
Yeah. So you talk about having a team, and they kind of fill the gaps for you. So how do you find these team members and the fit? Because I know there are different assessments and tools that will help you identify where your gaps are, like the Colby Assessment, Strengths Finder, DISC, and so forth. And then you can test your staff and candidates that you're looking to maybe hire, and then see where the right fit is. So if you're a quick start in Colby and you need somebody to come in and kind of finish things for you, you have them take the Colby Assessment as well and see how they are with that aspect. So what do you do?
I have used Enneagram, which is a less popular and less widely known maybe as the ones that you mentioned. We use Enneagram in our company. And, when it comes to finding the right person, I'm not the one that finds them. When I would hire people, when I was in charge of the HR, I would hire people I liked. And that's a problem because I liked them. It's not that they were best equipped. And that the people in our company, they're actually really good for the roles that they're in, are not necessarily people I would have hired. Not that I don't care about them, I do, but they wouldn't necessarily be people I would go out and, have dinner with on my own, because our personalities are different. And I enjoy everybody in our company, but everybody's got their own personalities based on their roles. And I'm definitely more of an entertainer in our company. I'm the socializer, and so I have people around me that are very, one track mind. Hey, Sean, we got to pay because they drive me nuts. But I need them on the case for completing projects. It really comes down to making sure that the HR person is aware that the strengths line up with the roles.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So what's that structure look like? So the strengths line up with the roles, and I'm guessing maybe the values would line up with the roles as well. So you find out what their highest values are and make sure that those are in alignment as well?
Yeah, well, and again, these are questions for people that are doing the hiring more than me, because this is why I stepped away from it. I'm not even quite sure what the hell they do. I just know it works. For me, I think there's two sets of values. There's the values that people have personally, and then there's the overall company values, and making sure that everybody's alignment with the company values. And if somebody can't live up to a company value, then they're just not a good fit. But like I said, I'm more of an entertainer. I've been a professional speaker for 24 years. And when I was put in more of a management hiring position, I struggled. And even in like the executive level of delegation, I'm not the strongest. I give people way too much benefit of the doubt. I would let somebody make more mistakes than would be necessary in a company. So I have somebody in the role of a CEO that is far more driven by rules and goals and structure than I ever have been. My gifts and strengths and skills lie inside the realm of rapport and connection and getting people to open up and share vulnerabilities and to share my vulnerabilities. And it's very hard to be in a position where you need to make really tough decisions to let people go or go a new direction if you're the sentimental one that wants to make sure everybody's feeling good. It took me a long while. I mean, I was in business for 22 years before I finally admitted that I shouldn't be the CEO of my own company. That took a hit to my ego, but it was a beneficial decision.
Yeah, that's a big decision to make, to step down and kind of be the founder and the cheerleader, but not the CEO of your own company. I had a CEO myself for a while, my previous company that I had founded and eventually sold. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And there were some rocky points there. Did you have any kind of run-ins with your CEO where you did not agree with their decision or their direction and you kind of had to duke it out?
No, I was actually quite the opposite. I had incredible trust and just faith that this was the right person, and their decision making has always been stronger than mine in terms of the business roles, that is, and they supported my strengths and I supported theirs. So it was less of a duke it out tug of war battle than most people probably would experience. And I'm somebody that if I'm in my wheelhouse and I'm doing what I love to do, I don't need to micromanage shit that I don't care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many people work on the stuff that's their weaknesses because they believe they need to shore those up, but then they should really only be focused on their strengths and working on in their zone of genius or in their gift.
Yep, and that's why Dan Sullivan has had such a positive impact on my life through Strategic Coach, because Dan's all about, look, you could spend your whole life trying to improve a D to a C for what? Like, what benefit is that going to help you compared to take your A's to A pluses and put all your energy and your focus into your strengths?
Yeah. How long have you been learning from Dan Sullivan?
I've been learning from Dan for probably close to 4 or 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah, he's awesome. Did you get to know him through Genius Network, or was it some other?
Yep, through Joe. Through Joe and through Genius Network, and since befriended him and Babs. And I lived in Chicago for a long while, and they have a home there. So I would go to their home sometimes for dinner, and it's just very fortunate to actually know them as people and not just mentors.
And let's talk about Joe for a moment. So how did you end up meeting Joe, and how did that relationship blossom?
So I met Joe through Eben Pagan. I was at Eben's original pilot course in building a business called Altitude, and he invited probably close to 100 of his closest colleague, business friends, And Joe was one of those, and I was one of those people. And I went to lunch, and Joe was seated to my right. And Joe had been giving endless playful grief to Evan throughout the course of the altitude program. And I just thought, who is this kid? Like, not kid, but a man. I don't even know if I like him. And so then I went to lunch, and he was very sincere at lunch. And he gave me his business card, and he said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And then my book, Get Off Your Butt, came out, and I thought, well, I know he has a podcast. Maybe I could be on his podcast. So I reached out to him and said, hey, remember having lunch with me? I would love it and be honored if you would be willing to interview me for my book release. And he came to Chicago and interviewed me. We had a 2.5-hour interview. And then he hired me to work with him on a project. And then he started hiring me to start speaking to his different groups. And one thing led to another. I finally joined his group, and then I moved to Arizona, partially to be closer to him. And we hang out all the time. We've traveled on vacation together. We've been through the darkest periods together. He sat with me in hospitals. We've held each other through times where we were both sobbing from personal pain and loss. He's a genuine, one of my closest friends, and one of the biggest influences on my way of being.
Wow, that's amazing. And how long have you known him for now?
Close to 14 years.
Okay, cool. And do you have any joint venture type businesses together?
No, I've never done specific joint ventures with him. I've promoted his stuff, of course, and he's promoted mine. He's hired me, and I've hired him. So we've definitely exchanged money quite a bit over the years, but we've never gone into a partnership together. And I'm very, very, very particular about partnerships. I find that not always, but sometimes partnerships are the only ships that don't sail. I've had some interesting experiences with partnerships over the years, and found that sometimes it's best to just coexist and make money than not necessarily partner up and create a business together. Because if people have different objectives years later, it can really ruin the friendship and connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a marriage of sorts, and if you're not in complete alignment, things can go really, really wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So have you heard of the concept that money is energy?
Of course.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts about that? Because, you talked about how you and Joe exchange money through like him hiring you, you hiring him, and promoting each other's products and services and stuff. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I definitely know that everything is energy, not just money. And I find that when money is flowing, it brings a levity. When money is backed up, it brings a heaviness. I find that money amplifies our way of being. If we're up to no good, money just gives us more of a way of being up to no good. But yeah, I certainly see money as energy, and I'm always studying about not just the strategies and the concepts of business from a practical standpoint and tactical, but also from the energy perspective. And what am I holding on to that is damning my finances? I believe that, as Napoleon Hill talked about, that sexual energy is connected to money as well. I think that it's important in our marriage, my wife and I, to be on the same page romantically, intimately. I think that has an impact on our finances and how we flow things through our life. I'm actually quite a woo-woo person behind closed doors. I don't lead with it because I feel sometimes people get lost in that, and then that's all they see. It becomes the hammer and everything becomes the nail. But for the most part, I run a lot of things through the question of is this flowing abundantly or is this holding on from scarcity?
Yeah, that's really powerful. And we're both aligned in that regard. So the way I see money as energy and everything as energy is like, for example, if you give money to a homeless person, and I actually learned this concept in Kabbalah. I take Kabbalah classes. And so let's say that you hand a $5 bill to a homeless person. If that person uses the money for themselves and like the flow of that energy stops, so it's for themselves alone, then that's not keeping the energy in motion. So that's a blockage. Not that you shouldn't donate or give money to homeless people, but when you do that exclusively and you don't give to organizations that help the homeless people and the environment and whatever other causes you care about, that keeps the money in motion. That keeps that energy flowing, and that's important and Kabbalistically, like to your own spiritual development. And another thing too that I learned that I think is quite powerful is when you hand that $5 bill to a homeless person and you expect a reaction, positive reaction probably, from that homeless person, you are robbing yourself of the spiritual blessings that could have come by just having no expectations. So if that homeless person spits in your face and like, how dare you give me $5, and you probably have $20 in your wallet that you're not giving me, and then you get upset and your ego is bruised and whatever because you had these expectations. That's a very different sort of way of giving. That's called reactive sharing, versus proactive sharing is like, I don't have any expectations. I don't want anything from this homeless person. In fact, if they react negatively, I'm totally cool with that because I'm expecting the blessings to come from the Creator. That just opens up a whole...
Yeah, I remember years ago, I was in Chicago, where I was living at the time, and it was cold out, and this girl was playing a violin with her violin case open, and I just felt so called. It might have been the Christmas time, I don't know. But I felt called to put a $100 bill in the violin case. And I could feel the struggle going on between my heart and my ego. My ego wanted to look back when the girl looked down into the violin case when she saw that I dropped the $100 bill in. But my heart was like, just keep walking. Do not look back. And that's very much the same concept. And... it's because give expecting nothing thereof. Giving is the character development. It's the gift that you give yourself by just knowing that you took the high road, that you cared about another human being without needing their approval, without needing even their admiration. You just did it because you knew it was the right thing to do. And I think that's hard for humans. I will say that I think the ego, I would rather the ego be used for positive purposes, though. If somebody gets a great amount of appreciation for donating, a couple $100,000 to build a wing of a hospital, or millions of dollars to build a wing, I should say, and they get their name on it and they feel amazing about that, is that the most spiritually clean, highest value? Probably not. But I'd rather they do that than sink it into something that wasn't going to continue to have value to the planet. So I do see a little bit of both sides.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about ego for a minute, because I used to think of ego as something to fight against, or something that was an overall negative.
Ego is, as was it Justin Holiday? No, Ryan Holiday says ego is the enemy.
Yeah, that's right, Ryan Holiday. So then I got this kind of epiphany that the ego is actually a creation of the Creator. and it's for our benefit. It's something that we can push against, because when we don't have contrast, if it's all sunshine and rainbows and it's never stormy and dark, we don't appreciate the blessings and the beauty and the gifts. We just expect it. So, yeah, we need the contrast. Yeah. So our ego provides that contrast because we have something to push against. And so I'm grateful for my ego, and I challenge myself all the time to keep it in check and to be aware of the larger reality, the 99% reality, not just the 1%, the physical, like, I got to pay the bills, and I've got to make sure that my projects are going to finish on time and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this way. Your ego will be, in my opinion, your ego will be with you as long as you're alive. But that's the purpose of life, is to learn things while you're here with it. I think when we're pure positive energy, when we're spirit, the ego dies with the body. This is my opinion. And you've learned what you needed to learn while you were here. And, I am grateful for the ego as well. It's allowing me to constantly learn. I can tell you that when I look back on my life, the things that my ego really pushed me to do oftentimes turned out to be miserable at first, or at some point miserable. But then what I learned from that became my greatest gifts. So it is the contrast. It is the dark and the light. It is the night and the day, the hot and the cold.
Yeah. So what have been the darkest moments for you that have brought you the biggest gifts?
Times where I have let people down by not coming through on the promises that I made them. Times that the darkest moments are always the times where I feel like I caused another human being pain because of my actions, my activities, my words, things that then later I just think to myself, like, how did I do that? Why did I do that? Where did that come from? And, you can always trace it to pain. The hurt, and the heal. And, the dark moments were always times where I was selfish, and not in a positive sense of the word, like self-focused. I mean, like selfish, like straight up, I'm going to get mine, forget how other people are going to feel about this. Those are the dark moments, things that I've done in business, in my marriage, with my friends at times. And I just look back, and when you're in a good state and you're at a high vibration and you feel great, and you look back on those stupid decisions and you're like, how did I make that decision? Well, the reason why it seems so impossible that you made that is because you're not looking back from the person you were that made that decision. You're looking back from the person on the other side. You're looking back for the person that now has the wisdom. You're looking back from the person that now has the outcome. You're looking back from the person that now learned the lesson. So it seems unfathomable because you can't easily dial up the personality and the belief structure and the emotions that you were at when you made that decision. When I felt the most broken is when I broke things the most. I've had times where things got out of hand in relationships where I said things and did things that hurt people's, well, I shouldn't say hurt their feelings, but that created the scenarios where it wasn't my highest good. It really caused waves, and some were repairable, not all of them. And I think they all were the result of me not taking good care of myself. When I let my self-care rituals wane and I stopped focusing on my health and my own mental well-being, that's when I started to seek gratification and validation, and those were the times that I made the dumbest decisions. I know that when I take great care of myself, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually, when I take great care of myself, I have no desire to feel lack. I have no impulse to want to take or to hurt. But when I am just out of control with my self-care, and all I want is an instant gratifying experience, that's when I do things from a place that I always regretted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that coincides with a principle I learned in Kabbalah called restriction. When you restrict, you reveal all this light, and you're a beacon of light and hope, and you change the field around you. You change everybody around you by restricting, and that means saying no to things that are bad for you. Ultimately, saying yes to things that are good for you but are hard to be disciplined about, and that inspires others to restrict in those same ways. And self-care aligns perfectly with restriction, and also avoiding the impulsive stuff that's just a short-term pleasure, but a long-term loss, or something that actually ends up hurting somebody else to your short-term benefit. So have you heard of that concept of restriction before?
Yeah, I have. And feel from my own life that if I can get exercise and meditate every day, it doesn't matter what else happens, I make good choices. So when I don't exercise and meditate, the odds go up in the bad choice decision-making category.
Yeah. Yeah, and you shared with like hundreds of people in the Genius Network annual event in November, and I was in the audience, what your exercise regimen looks like, and I was so inspired by that. And I've started going back to the gym now, and I want to be a force for good, and it's harder to be a force for good when you don't take care of yourself, because you got to feed your own vessel so that vessel can grow and expand. So do you want to share with our listeners what some of your exercise regimen looks like?
Yeah. So I have a home gym that we built based on my size and my physical capabilities. So there are certain things that would make no sense for anybody else to use it, but it works for me. So like they don't make weight machines in my size. So I went out and found things that I could customize to my size. So I have pulleys and sandbags to my size. I have air pumps that are like foot pumps, but the amount of pressure that they push back, it kind of almost simulates like a Bowflex type machine that I can continue to reconfigure the different ways that I use that so I can get different muscle groups. I have small hand weights, medicine ball, so many different yoga blocks. And then I do my best to either do a high intensity interval training. So anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, where it's like 45 seconds on with whatever the activity is, 10-second break. And 45 seconds on, 10-second break, and then do like 5 activities that then repeat 3 times. So that's the majority of my workouts lately. But I've done things as set challenges to do 1,000 sit-ups in a day for a while. I can plank for 5 minutes. Now I built up my endurance to handle that. A really good workout entails 20 to 30 minutes of stretching for me. I will strap weights to my legs and jog in place on my back. Swimming when the weather is conducive for that. I have a stationary hand bike that I use for cardio, and I'll go in sprints. And just anything I can do that gets that heart rate up, builds that, the muscle fibers by breaking things down, and just keeps me in a zone of really appreciating my body. Being 3 feet tall and in a wheelchair, there's a lot my body won't allow me to do. So trying to figure out my range of motion and maximizing that has made all the difference. Because when I'm physically taking great care of myself, I don't really think about my disability that much because I feel strong. I feel that I'm the captain of my own ship and that I'm charting a really fun course in this body. He didn't have to live trapped in that body. And let me tell you, I much prefer to be tall in a wheelchair than somebody who is morbidly obese, painfully out of shape, winded getting out of off the couch. Like that to me is far more debilitating than my own container.
Yeah. So if you had the opportunity to redo your life and to choose a different body and be, let's say, end up 6 feet tall or whatever, and very muscular and have all sorts of capabilities, would you choose that? Or do you think that your current incarnation with its limitations is actually a huge gift?
So are we saying the next time around, or are we saying that I would trade what I got right now?
Right. So this time around, would you do it differently if you could? Or do you see this as a complete gift?
Yeah, well, I feel like my container is a part of my mission. Yeah. And I personally believe that about everyone. I think that your container you're not randomly put into your container, in my opinion. I think that your container was chosen for your mission. It's clear to me LeBron James or a Michael Jordan, their container was a part of their mission. And same with mine. My mission is not to dunk a basketball. My mission is to wheel onto a stage and to get people's attention and to speak truth into their heart in a way that they would listen to me more clearly about the topic of insecurity than somebody who looked like a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan. I think that my container is filled with all kinds of gifts. I appreciate that I am little. I appreciate that there are things, that I never have to struggle with because I'm little. I would rather, if you're going to have a disability, it's easier to be little and carried by people easily than to be big with a disability. That's much more challenging, in my opinion. If I had to trade it, I wouldn't in this lifetime because I built up an awareness of how to maximize this container. If I were to pass away and start over on another mission, I would definitely be down with trying a new body. I do believe in past lives. I do believe that I've been in a lot of different physical forms on this planet. And I chose this one for a reason. I think it'd be fascinating to come back as a woman and just see what it's like to bring life onto the planet. I think that everybody's got something to their container, if not many things, that are just super miraculous and amazing. And if you're not focused on that, you're just looking at what you can't do. It's frustrating. Like if I just gifted you a Lamborghini and you got pissed off because it can't go off-road, it can't go up a mountainside, you're looking not at what it was built to do. If you're pissed that I gave you a semi-truck and you're mad that it can't, explode off the line in a drag race, then you're not looking at what it can do. Every container in that metaphor, every vehicle is equipped to do something different.
A therapist I knew told me this bit of wisdom, which is if you're looking for warts, all you're going to find are warts. So the container you're in, your vessel, and any limitations that you have are also opportunities. They're gifts. Maybe the bow's on the bottom, as my wife likes to say. The gift is there. You're just not seeing it yet. Yeah. And I remember you saying on stage that if you were not 3 foot tall and in a wheelchair, people would not listen to you as much, and you would not have as much of an impact on the world. And that struck me.
Yeah, the basis was if I looked like you couldn't hear me the same way.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's how you said
it. Yeah, because if I looked like you would think, well, what new information do you have to bring me? You look just like me. Whereas because I look so radically different and I'm speaking on such intense topics that most people in my container may not feel comfortable to talk about, you're going to perk up. You're going to listen. You're going to say, wow, this message does not necessarily match this container. This is bold. This is courageous. And I want to listen to it also because of my container. The mind loves novelty. And, novelty is one of the strongest aspects of marketing. It's one of the strongest aspects to the brain. Seth Godin said it best in The Purple Cow, that if you drove past the pasture and there was a purple cow, you would most certainly pull the car over and take a picture with it, and you would tell all your friends, and you posted all over your social media that you saw a purple cow today, and that you would never, ever for the rest of your life forget the purple cow. And that's what I am. I'm a purple cow. That somebody who meets Sean Stephenson, 3 feet tall and in a wheelchair, with the message that he has, they're not going to forget that. And so that is a tremendous gift. To be able to etch something into another human being's brain and at the level of the masses like I've been able to do, that is a tremendous gift. And I am super grateful for it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, I'm curious if you're a follower or a fan of Abraham Hicks, because we've been talking a lot of spiritual concepts here. Is that somebody you resonate with?
Yeah, absolutely. For a long while, I really struggled with it. I had a few people in my life bring it to me. My wife, Mindy, and a couple other people brought Abraham Hicks to my attention, and I didn't feel too comfortable with it at first. My skeptic brain was like, is this really a channel? Are these really spiritual entities? What the hell is this? Is this just a marketing hoax to sell courses? What is it? And I fought it, and I fought it, and I fought it. And yet there was also still an element to who I was that was listening to the content. And the way I started off is, well, let's just listen to the content, whether it's made up or not. Let's just see if you even agree with the content. And the more I heard the content, the more I was having these decks of like, yeah, I agree with that. Or yeah, that resonates with me. Or yeah, I've seen that to be the case. Or yeah, man, that just seems to really show up in my life. And, I'm a very intuitive person. And when something feels right to me, I don't need a ton of evidence to prove that it's true. I just know it's right for me, and I go from there. And so when I came across Abraham Hicks, I was like, I can deny this all I want, but it's in alignment with what I believe.
Yeah, it is in alignment for sure. And I have a similar experience too of being a skeptic at first. It was my wife that brought it to my attention as well. And so she had been following Abraham for a while before we had met, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about this stuff. Like it's an entity, or like there are multiple entities there speaking through this woman, and she's selling seminars, so she's making money off this. I don't know. But then hearing that content and thinking, wow, this is really wise. This is really insightful. And then exercising the willing suspension of disbelief and just setting my skeptic brain aside and just letting the wisdom in has really had a profound impact on me. And so I'm a huge fan now. Have you been to any of her seminars?
I have not, but I listen to her almost every day. And, on a parallel tangent here is that my whole adult life, I didn't believe in past lives. I was raised Catholic, and that just is almost blasphemy to believe that, or it is blasphemy, I should say, and didn't believe in him. Then I became a doctor of clinical hypnosis, where we learn about using timeline therapy and past life regression. And I really struggled with those courses. With my professor, I would literally like challenge him and say, like, how, prove that this is coming from the past life and not conjured up from the unconscious mind as just a story, so that we can get some validation to what we're feeling. And I remember something he said to me. He's like, well, even if it's just a story and it's what that person needs to believe to let go of pain, aren't you willing to let them hold on to that story as if it's true so they can release their pain? And that kind of opened the door a little bit for me to say, okay, fine, I will go through with these past life regression sessions, but I'm not going to personally believe in it. And then I met my wife, Mindy, and we had a period of months between our first date and our second date. And on our second date, and we encountered and we embraced each other physically, I felt this flood of images in my head that I had been with her thousands of times before, and yet this was the first time I'd ever physically embraced her. And here I was having all these images and feelings, and I just remember thinking, holy shit, I think I believe in past lives now. And it was like that moment where you go and resist something for years, and then a light switch goes on, and you're like, why was I resisting this so vehemently? And it was oftentimes because deep down inside you secretly knew it to be true. And that's a big component to how I live my life. I personally believe that whatever you resist vehemently, you secretly desire or believe. I think that we see this too often when people are, having huge homophobic tendencies, that oftentimes they have their own sexual desires towards the same sex. Just whatever it may be, when somebody is vehemently against something, it's because their unconscious is secretly desiring it or believing in itself. So that's a little side tangent that I just thought would be interesting to share.
Yeah, that's great. And kind of a similar concept that if you're rejecting or vehemently against something, that there's a part of yourself that you are rejecting too. I've heard that multiple times from different thought leaders. So there's a rejected or disowned part of yourself that you're...
Yeah, wherever there's a lot of energy, to come back to that full circle, wherever there's a lot of energy pent up, there's need for exploration.
Yeah.
Somebody will say, oh, do I need to agree with everything that's in life, or that secretly means I want to do it? And I go, no. There's a difference between disagreeing and being vehemently disagreeing and rage-like disagreeing. If you see something and you go, yeah, that's not for me, or nope, I don't agree with that, that's probably in alignment. I agree with you. If you are raging against it, there's something stuck in your blind spot because it's activating you. And that means some part of you is fragmented off, and it's a projection. And you are seeing something that is either what you're desiring or you're afraid you are.
Yeah. Or maybe it's another way to look at it is it's part of your life's work, your mission, your tikkun in Kabbalah terms, to work through it. So that we all are born into these issues that we have to face, or if we don't, we have to face it in the next life.
Yeah. I also, I look back at my own life, and the things that I hated and pushed against strongly when I was younger, in my 20s, now I have fully embraced and I love. When I was younger, I thought tattoos were ugly, and I wanted nothing to do with people that had tattoos. I thought they were a sign of disrespect to the body. I found them to be trashy, and I pushed them away so strongly. And then in my 30s, I got my first tattoo and absolutely loved it and felt so connected to the tribal symbolism on my body. And I was like, wow, how did I go so long hating these things that now I absolutely embrace? And there's multiple examples of that in my life where if there's something I'm pushing really hard against, I need to wake up and see what's really going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so let's move into lightning round mode for the last, let's say, 5 minutes of this amazing interview. So let's just do short question answers for each of these. So what's your recommended approach to meditation? Is it short spurts, or is it a long once a day meditation? Is it TM? Is it mindfulness meditation, labyrinths? Like, what works for you and what do you think works for others?
Well, what works for others is whatever works for others. I think it's
yeah.
It's a part of the journey to find what works for you. What works for me is conscious breathing exercises, specifically Kundalini breathing. So like for a meditation for me, it would be 20 minutes of the breath of fire, which is just in, out, in, out, in, out through the nose. And then at the very end of that 20 minutes, holding my breath for as long as I can. And it's fascinating how when you just put a lot of oxygen into your brain, how you can double what feels like double your lung capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. Okay. So next question is actually more of a statement that I've heard before, and I'd love your take on it. So instead of money is the root of all evil, or money kind of corrupts, and like absolute power corrupts absolutely. Instead of those sorts of concepts, I really like this one, which is money just makes you more of who you already are. So it amplifies who you are at your core. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you ask me, Sean, finish the statement, money is, I would say money is an amplifier. And that's exactly it. It reveals your true character. I love giving. I love gifting. I love the experience of contribution. And so whether I've gone through periods where I have $5 to give or $25,000 to give, it brings such joy to me. And I believe that money amplifies that in me. But I've seen people who they come across money and it looks like money changed them, but really all it did is it revealed them. They didn't have the ability, they didn't have the amplifier very loud when there wasn't money, so their true agenda really was.
Okay, this is great stuff. Okay, next is, do you believe it's possible to kind of redo the past hurts that you have inflicted on others in a way that like takes the pain away, or kind of it's a redo, even though it happened in the past and you can't change the past? Maybe. Do you believe that spiritually it's possible?
Yeah, I think energetically it is for sure. I found that, this is my own opinion, and it's probably the tapestry of a lot of different studies, but my own opinion is that forgiveness is not the acceptance of what happened, but the embracing. That you don't truly forgive somebody until you turn to them and say, thank you for doing that because of who I am now. And, I look back at my past decisions and what has been done to me and what I have done. The way forgiveness took place and cleared the space was when both parties, or hopefully both parties, were able to be conscious and say, thank you for this experience. It completed something for me. When they take spiritual responsibility on both sides, then the energy is cleared and cleaned. Because then you look at it and you say, thank God that happened. We are way closer now because that happened. Or I'm way more evolved because that happened. Or I'm way more grateful. Or I'm way more present because that happened. But as long as somebody's not willing to come responsibly to the table and say, thank you for the experience, it's what I wanted and needed spiritually, then it doesn't clear, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, amazing. Okay, last question. So you alluded to this already, that there's some content in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, around the sexual transmutation is what he refers to it as. There's a whole chapter on it, in fact. And I'm curious, what has been the most profound impact of those teachings of Napoleon Hill's in your life? Yeah, so that whole concept of sexual transmutation, how has that impacted you? Like, if you could share one powerful thing that's changed your life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Kundalini breathing is my meditation, and energy work in terms of flowing energy sexually with my spouse is definitely, I've seen it impact our finances because you're not holding on to blocks. You're using the body for what it is, which is an amplifier, just like money, and it's allowing healing of past hurts. And I think that there's a sexual alchemy that takes place within us if we're willing to do the internal work. I'm very, very fascinated with these bodies that we live in and how they're more than just meat suits, that they are like antennas that can raise frequency and lower frequency and bring toward us our dreams or our nightmares. And I find that to be one of the greatest studies of my own life.
That's a brilliant bit of wisdom there. Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing all these insights and learnings and bits of wisdom with us in this episode. Where can I send our listeners to learn more and to potentially work with you, hire you if you're available? Where should they go?
Well, the first thing is if they want to work with me personally and they have questions, I'm happy to give out my email address. It's Sean, SEAN, at Lucra, which is the name of our company, LUCRA.com. So Sean at Lucra.com would be the way that they could reach out to me personally.
Awesome. And then your book, of course, is a great way to start to learn from you. That's called Get Off Your Butt, and available on Amazon and everywhere where books are sold. You probably have quite a lot of content of your speeches and so forth on YouTube as well, I'm guessing?
Yep, absolutely. And I would recommend, I've gotten really big into Instagram stories, which are daily stories that I put out. And so my Instagram handle is the number 3, Foot Giant. So the number 3 and then FOOTGIANT. And people can follow me daily there if they so choose. I'm actually going to take a Instagram photo for us right now so I can use it for today's story. And that would be probably the best way for them to stay in touch with that email and then follow me on Instagram.
Okay, fantastic. Well, listeners, I'm sure you're inspired to now make a difference even more in the world and with the people that you care about. So have at it, and also go on to the website for this podcast and see what you can do to share this with others and spread the word. Thanks, and this is your host, Stephen Spencer, signing off. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was a real joy to have this opportunity with you. So if there's anything I can do for you, I'd be more than happy to. I know...
What line of business are you in?
Yeah, so I'm an SEO expert and author. I have 3 books published by O'Reilly, and you might have seen one of them in the gifting lounge at the annual event. It was The Art of SEO. It's a big 1,000-page book with a hummingbird on the cover. That's my book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you
1,000 pages.
Yeah. Well, it's
The abridged version.
Yeah, that's right. it's a complex topic. So, but yes, I would love to help you with that. Just, happy to help you spread the message, and, just pro bono, whatever kind of advice or expertise I can offer you for getting higher Google rankings. Happy
Excellent.
to do that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, and I've helped some other cool folks with making a difference, just donating my time and expertise as well, like President Jimmy Carter. I helped them with the Carter Center website with SEO and with some marketing initiatives. So that was very effective. And Foresight Institute, which is a really great organization that's all about nanotechnology and helping to shape the public policy making around nanotechnology, so we don't end up with the gray goo problem, if you've ever heard of that, which is like nanotechnology, like the nanorobots gone wild, where they can't be stopped and then they consume everything. So I love making a difference with my zone of genius, and be happy to help you too with that.
Perfect. Thank you. So did you join Genius Network?
I did.
Nice. So I'll see you around at the smaller meetings?
Yep. I'm coming in January and June, I think, is what I'm signed up for.
All right, my friend. Well, good to see you, and thanks for having me on your program.
Yes, thanks. I'll let you know when it airs, and really appreciate you and who you are.
You bet. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care.